There you go. Just gonna pause that for now.
Okay.
No, that's the safest. Just yeah, just do that.
All right, we have everyone, all the participants coming in right now. Slowly admitting them. Thank you everyone for joining us. Okay, letting some more people in right now. Thank you all for your patience.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
All righty, I think that's everyone. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our roundtable discussion on the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. Today, you will be hearing from Congressman Tony Cardenas, the FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel, and Edward Bartholome from the FCC's Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau, who will also be presenting on the program later in this meeting. At this moment, I do want to ask everyone to keep their microphones on mute until the second half of our meeting. We will have a portion for Q&A and for a little discussion. So at this time, I do want to give the floor over to Congressman Cardenas. Thank you.
Thank you, Osva, and appreciate the opportunity to come together with many of you, not only throughout the San Fernando Valley and Los Angeles, but all the way to Washington, D.C. and in between. Hopefully, this is the beginning of an awareness campaign of an amazing opportunity that has come about where we're going to be accessing over $3.2 billion, and some of that will be leveraged beyond that, $3.2 billion so that people can have true access to broadband across the country. So first, I'd like to thank everyone for coming together, and also thank the acting FCC chairwoman, in my opinion, soon to be chairwoman, but that's my opinion, Jessica Rosenworcel at the FCC, and her amazing team for being generous with their time in attending today's event and to talk about Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. And I'd like to also give a shout out to her team, because we've been doing a lot of dialogue and making sure that everything rolls out as best as possible. And it's been wonderful working with your team. So please thank all of them on our behalf, Jessica. There's been a lot of long overdue dialogue lately about racial and ethnic disparities when it comes to access to healthcare, education, housing, job opportunities, and the list goes on. And the COVID-19 pandemic has brought to light a lot of these inequities, and it's even been exacerbated with the pandemic. One area we're here to talk about is internet access. The current health crisis has made it impossible to do almost anything that most people need to do on their daily activities, such as work, learn, go to the doctor, have appointments. Unless you have broadband at home, many of these things have become inaccessible. And for millions of Americans, that's their reality. They don't have access. For example, there's an estimate that about 50 million American Black and Brown community households in communities across America lack internet access. A USC survey released on Tuesday showed that nearly 2 million people in Los Angeles County are still unconnected. Another study from UCLA estimated that 29% of Hispanic students and 27% of Black students didn't always have internet last fall. And we're still in the middle of a pandemic that's keeping a lot of folks at home. So many colleagues and I have been working hard to address connectivity throughout the country. Congress passed a package last December, and in it was a bipartisan, I say bipartisan, ladies and gentlemen, that was a bill that created $3.2 billion with a B of emergency broadband connectivity funds, and tasked the Federal Communications Commission to use the fund to develop an emergency broadband benefit program. The emergency broadband benefit program will help eligible households receive up to $50 a month to pay for broadband service, and a one-time discount of up to $100 to buy some kind of computer or some accessible device. So as you can see, this benefit is pretty incredible, and it can do a lot of good for families in the San Fernando Valley and throughout the country. But we're here today to not only make sure you all know about the program, we're also here today so that you can ask questions to help us figure out how we make this how this outreach is made accessible, truly accessible. We're asking our community partners and leaders here in the San Fernando Valley and asking others and friends and partners in the East Coast and all across the country to help us get the word out. Share this information with your networks, with your communities, so that we reach as many households as possible who are depending on this help. I'm going to pass it off to the acting chairwoman in just a second so she can give more of an outline of how this rollout is going to take place and how the benefits can benefit people across the country. But once again, I just want to say to some of you, Blinky, Bobby, many people have known me to be involved in juvenile justice programs. And I learned early in my career, 25 years ago, that the best way to do something where the community is actually truly included and it's made accessible is to bring the community in and listen to them. And once again, I want to thank Acting Chairwoman Rosenworcel and your team for being so accessible and so helpful in making sure that the community from across the country, national organizations, some local organizations, were basically explaining some of the nuances and some of the impediments that happen sometimes when the government rolls out a program. So we're really excited that this is going to roll out very well. So with that, Acting Chairwoman Rosenworcel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Congressman Cardenas. I appreciate how deeply you care about your community, and I also appreciate how deeply you understand how important it is to get everyone in the San Fernando Valley and all across the country connected to high-speed internet service. Look, there was a time before this pandemic when broadband was nice to have, but this pandemic has conclusively proved that it's need to have for everyone, everywhere, no matter who they are, where they came from, or where they live. We have got to get 100% of the households in this country connected. Now, we know right now, there is probably some student somewhere sitting outside of a fast food restaurant to borrow that Wi-Fi signal to go to class, because if they try to do it at home, they're locked out of the virtual classroom. We probably know there's someone right now who's not following up on their healthcare because it's a telemedicine appointment, and maybe they just have a mobile phone that's data capped. And we probably know there's someone who can't find a new job opportunity or can't sign up for a vaccine right now because they don't have high-speed service at home. So we've known for a while we should fix this. And the really amazing news is that Congress decided we need a new program to help get us all connected. And that's this emergency broadband benefit. It's historic. It is the single largest program in the United States to address broadband affordability in this country. And it gets started on May 12th next week. Eligible households are going to get a $50 a month discount on their broadband service. And there's another discount if they want to purchase a laptop or a computer. So what we need to do now is get the word out. I can preach all I want from Washington, get on as many Zoom meetings as I want, and I swear to you, I'm on them from morning, noon, and night. But the most powerful thing to do is to speak to people who are trusted in their communities, who can go to the people they know, the people they see in the grocery store, they see at church, they see in school parking lots. Those are the ways that we're going to get this country connected. And it's really important because our digital divide is not just about getting infrastructure to rural America. It's about making sure people in urban and suburban America can afford broadband in every house, everywhere. So I'm really proud of this program that Congress tasked the FCC with developing. We've done it in record time. It starts next week, but we want to be able to turn the baton over to you, trusted actors and leaders in local communities, because with your help, we'll get more folks signed up, and we're going to give more folks an opportunity at 21st century success. So I wanted to pass it on to Ed Bartolome from the FCC staff, who's going to be able to go through some of the details and tell you where you can get more information. But before I do, I just want you to know you can reach out to me in my office at any time. We want to empower as many local officials as possible to help us really be partners in getting 100% of this country connected.
Ready, Ed?
Yep.
Okay.
Let me, I'm going to share some slides. So let me pull those up and then I'll get rolling. So just give me 1 second to get that on screen. Hopefully you're seeing those. All right. So Thank you, Acting Chairwoman Rosenworcel, and thank you, Congressman Cardenas. I'd also like to thank the attendees for joining us this morning. Today, I want to provide you with an overview of the new temporary emergency broadband benefit program designed to assist households struggling to pay for internet service during the pandemic. So today I'm going to cover what the benefit is, who's eligible, how households can apply, and provide an overview of a toolkit that the FCC has developed to aid partners, navigators, and others directly serving their communities and getting the word out about this important program. I'll also share some websites where you can find more detailed information about the program and details on how to contact the FCC if you have additional questions. So, as we've adopted the chairwoman's language here, broadband is no longer nice to have, it's need to have. And as she just mentioned, the emergency broadband benefit will allow students to connect to classrooms, individuals to work remotely, and it connects us all to family, friends, telehealth services, and other critical resources. So this benefit provides eligible households with up to a $50 per month discount for broadband services, including associated equipment rentals such as a modem, up to a $75 per month discount for households on tribal lands, and a one-time discount of up to $100 for a laptop, desktop computer, or tablet purchased through a participating provider. If the household contributes more than $10 and less than $50 towards the purchase price. So I've been told by our legal experts that that's somewhere between $10.01 and $49.99 is what the household will be asked to contribute depending on the device. It's important to note that the connected device must be provided by the same provider that the eligible household is receiving discounted broadband service from as a part of the emergency broadband benefit program. It's not a coupon or rebate that you can use at a third-party retail store to buy a device. The emergency broadband benefit is limited to one monthly service discount and one device discount per eligible household. The benefit is not a direct-to-consumer benefit, so consumers don't get a check in the mail each month. Instead, the provider who's providing the discount on the bill will seek reimbursement through the program directly. It is temporary, and it was developed in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the program will end once the funds are exhausted, and as was mentioned, it's $3.2 billion. But once they do run out, the program will end, or 6 months after the Department of Health and Human Services declares an end to the pandemic, whichever occurs first. And it's important to note that the program is administered by the Universal Service Administrative Company. They also administer the Lifeline program, and they host the application portal for the program, and that's getemergencybroadband.org, and that'll be up on the screen a little bit later. So who's eligible? There are 5 ways that a household can qualify. And some of those ways are actually sort of a little bit nuanced and layered. So let's go through that. A household is eligible if a member of the household meets one of the following criteria. So qualifies for or is currently receiving benefits in the Lifeline program. And I'll share a little bit more detail about Lifeline in a minute. Received a Pell Grant in the current award year, approved to receive benefits under the free and reduced school lunch program or breakfast program, including through the USDA's community eligibility provision. And on this one, it's important to note that that's for either the 2019-2020 or 2020-21 school year. So we know that a lot of schools have been remote and students may not be getting that free and reduced lunch or may not have had to apply for that this year. So that's why eligibility includes the last academic year.
So Ed, just notice there's a typo there. So it says 12, but that should say 21.
I sincerely apologize.
It's okay, just want to make sure everybody.
We are not going that far back in time to provide this benefit, unfortunately. It is.
I'll try to get it into the next legislation. Go ahead.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, continuing with eligibility, ways that a household could qualify. If a household experienced a substantial loss of income due to a job loss or furlough since February 29th, 2020, and the household had a total income in 2020 at or below 99,000 for single filers or 198,000 for joint filers. Or if a household meets and is eligible for a participating provider's COVID-19 or low income program. So you may well be aware that there are a number of national providers and others who have low income programs that predate this current benefit. And if a household qualified for one of those, they would be eligible in this program as well. So it's important to keep in mind that a member of the household must only meet one. They don't have to go through and check off all 5 of those. They just have to fall into one of those categories to be eligible for this program. And I promised to talk briefly a little bit about Lifeline a minute ago. So Lifeline is a federal program that lowers the monthly cost of phone and internet services for eligible households. You get up to $9.25 or $34.25 if you live on tribal lands towards your bill. And to qualify for Lifeline, a household has to have an income that is at or less than 135% of federal poverty guidelines, or a member of the household participates in one of the following assistance programs. So Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, better known as SNAP, Medicaid, Supplemental Security Income, Federal Public Housing Assistance, Veterans Pensions and Survivor Benefits. And then there are other tribal specific assistance programs for households that are on tribal lands that can help them qualify for Lifeline, and then all for therefore the emergency broadband benefit. Current Lifeline participants are automatically eligible, and in most cases, they will not need to apply separately for the emergency broadband benefit. But they do need to select a provider and eligible emergency broadband benefit plan in order to start receiving this new temporary benefit. Current Lifeline recipients cannot be auto-enrolled in the emergency broadband benefit program by their current Lifeline service provider. They need to provide affirmative consent before they can be enrolled. You can receive, sorry, go ahead.
Ed?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, at the very top of this, it's very clear. It says a household is eligible if any member, right? If any one member in that household meets one of these criteria. But one of the things I'd like to ask you, which is a simple question, it's not that somebody in that household needs to meet all of these. They just have to meet one of these and then they're qualified, correct?
That's correct. So it's one. You don't have to check all 5 boxes. It's any one of those. And it's important to note, since you brought that up, that a dependent child can qualify the entire household. So in the example where the school lunch situation or certain Pell Grant award situations, a child can qualify the household. Yes, so it is only one of the categories.
Thank you, Ed.
Sure. So you can receive both Lifeline and the emergency broadband benefit at the same time. They can be applied to the same service or separately. So you can have, for instance, a Lifeline supported mobile service and a separate home broadband service that's supported by the emergency broadband benefit. Another thing that you've probably picked up on and that our question just reflected is that we're using the word household a lot in describing eligibility. So let's kind of talk a little bit about what a household is for the purposes of this program. A household is a group of people who live together and share money, even if they're not related to each other. If you live together and share money, you're one household. If you don't live together or do not share money, you are 2 or more households. So think about roommates who are sharing, they might split expenses, but they're not sharing income to pay those expenses. They can all individually, separately qualify for this program. There are situations where a household may be having their internet paid for by someone else, such as a property owner, or I know a lot of schools have stood up programs where they might provide a hotspot or other device to provide internet. If that's the case, a household could decide to temporarily stop that service and get supported service using the emergency broadband benefit on their own account. Households that are within multi-unit dwellings, such as apartment buildings, nursing homes, group home facilities, can also take advantage of the benefit. And there are ways for households within multi-unit dwellings where the landlord or property manager is the account holder for the internet, and then they charge residents a fee to use internet. They can also take advantage of the emergency broadband benefit in some cases if the provider the landlord is using is a participating provider and the landlord approaches that provider to sort of initiate that opportunity for their residents. All of that is background on household, and you can learn more about how we're describing a household, and there's a worksheet to help you figure out if you're an independent household or if you're part of another household, and that's available at getemergencybroadband.org under Do I Qualify and What is a Household? The big question, how do you enroll? We've told you all about this great benefit and how you can qualify. Now, how do you get it? As the acting chairwoman mentioned, beginning on May 12th, which is next Wednesday, there will be 3 ways to apply for the emergency broadband benefit. So the first is to contact a participating broadband provider directly to learn about their application process. You can also go online to getemergencybroadband.org to fill out an online application, or you can mail in an application. So you can request an application either from a provider or through the website. They also have a support center number, which I'll share in a minute, where you can call and ask for a paper application, and you can mail that application along with, we recommend, copies of the proof of eligibility to the address on the screen there. And it's important to note, I know a lot of people on today's session are navigators or directly serving communities to help them enroll. You know, as a navigator or someone else who's helping a household to enroll, you can provide assistance, but it has to be, you have to do it in person. So there are parts of the form where somebody needs to sign their signature, add initials to a box, and this is both online or paper. And that needs to be done directly by the individual who's applying. So if you're going to be helping people, it needs to be help that's provided in person. I mentioned going directly to a participating provider. So I wanted to share a couple notes on participating providers with you today. As of this morning, there are about 850 of them across the country who have signed up to participate for the program. And the program is open to all broadband providers that meet requirements, not just those currently offering Lifeline services. We have both fixed and mobile providers who've elected to participate in the program. And you can check with providers in your area to learn more about their plans and the sort of the rate packages, you know, what speed tier are they offering as part of the EBB, what's the monthly cost for that. You can find a list of those participating providers by state and territory on fcc.gov/broadband benefit. And that'll be on the screen here in a second as well. A lot of providers are going to ask consumers to fill out the online application that I mentioned that's available at getemergencybroadband.org or a paper application. But do note that some providers have what we've called an alternative verification process that's been approved that they can use, and they might have that directly on their own website, or may be able to take a consumer's information over the phone to sign them up using that tool. So next, I want to introduce everybody to some toolkit materials that we've developed to support the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. You know, as others have mentioned, we knew from the beginning that, you know, we're in a very unique circumstance here. It's the middle of a pandemic. We're an agency that has traditionally been on the road. We go places, we meet people where they are and tell the story of what the FCC is doing and the programs and the activities we have that can support them. And we haven't been doing that for 14 months now. So we knew it was going to be really important to have trusted voices and outreach partners that know their local communities in order to drive awareness about this program. And since it's both a new program and a temporary program, we feel it's critical to work together to build awareness and the opportunities about the program itself and the opportunities it'll bring to everybody who's eligible, including hard to reach consumers. So that's why we put a lot of time and energy into developing a toolkit. It's a collection of social media materials, printables, and other tools that can assist community partners, grassroots organizers, constituent services teams, and navigators to help raise awareness about the program. The tools are available to the public for free. You can download and use them. You can co-brand them. You can adjust them into your own voice. And our goal was really to create easy to use materials that partners and others that serve their communities can grab quickly and make use of. So they help you discuss the program. They're designed so that you can speak easily and accurately about the benefit and how you qualify. You're welcome to copy and paste items like model tweets. We have a press release that you can put out, newsletter inserts, perfect for external messaging, constituent messaging.
Hey, Ed, can I just also point out, I think that they're all available in English and Spanish as well, which is important.
And and I've got a list of some other languages that are available too. So yes, most everything is in English and Spanish. And then we also have a fact sheet, a 9x5 info card, and a quarter-page handout available in Arabic, Amharic, Burmese, traditional Chinese, French, Haitian Creole, Korean, Portuguese, Russian, Somali, Tagalog, and Vietnamese. So English, Spanish, and 12 other languages we have materials in. And I'm, thank you, I appreciate the applause. It was a good exercise, and it's great that we were able to do that. And speaking of printable materials, I mentioned that there's a fact sheet, there's a flyer, a 9x5 handout card, a quarter-page handout, posters, infographics. We have audio PSAs. We have a PowerPoint deck that is similar to this one and hopefully does not contain a typo about the years that you were able to get the school lunch program and qualify. That can all be grabbed and used as you need it. We're working on videos. There's going to be an American Sign Language version of the video that explains the program to folks, as well as some other short videos. And in addition to those language requests, the languages available, we're happy to field accessibility related requests. So if you need something in an accessible format, you can send an email to fcc504@fcc.gov. So take these, use them, put them out there in the community, add the participating providers in your area to the back of a one-pager with contact info, customize them any way that you need to make them work for you. If you want to see a much longer version of what I've just told you with more details and an overview of the online application process, you can go to fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit and watch a video of a webinar we did last week that has a lot more detail than we had time for today. And I've shared a lot. I know we want to have time for Q&A, so I'm going to wrap up here, but I did just want to leave you with these websites on the screen before I take this down. It's fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit. There's a toll-free number for questions, and that's 833-511-0311, and that is staffed 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time. And if you have additional questions, requests, you want some materials, and or want to know how to use some of the materials we have, broadbandbenefit@fcc.gov. And with that, I'll pull down the slides and turn it back over for Q&A.
Thank you, Ed. But before we get to the Q&A, I just wanted to once again say thank you so much for making it so accessible. And we're going to learn a lot in this conversation as well. And trust me, when it comes to low-income Latino households, that 800 number is a lifesaver. It really, really is. It used to drive us little kids nuts whenever we had to do something. Our parents would get us to be their translator. In my house, my parents had 11 little translators. So they'd grab one of us by the collar and there we go. But anyway, but that 800 number is a lifesaver because as we're talking about, many of these households don't necessarily know how to navigate the internet. So calling that phone number is really good. But my last question, Acting Chairwoman, is how many languages can they respond in when somebody calls that 800 number?
You know, we have on contract languages, like hundreds of languages and people we can put them in touch with. We did make a decision though to make the bulk of our materials available in both English and Spanish just from the get-go. Because we know when we look at the statistics in this country, who is over-indexed on smartphone use and under-indexed on home connections. So we want to make sure our materials target the people who need it most.
Okay, I saw one of the questions, and you can answer this, acting chairwoman. And when does the program end? I think it was Ms. Gomez who asked that question.
This is such a good question. We told you it starts on May 12th, so that's an absolute certainty. I can't tell you today what the demand will be and how fast these dollars will run out. Largely because we've never had a program. Yeah, we've never had a program this big for broadband affordability. And frankly, we've never had one during a global pandemic when connectedness is so important. But what's also important to me is we get as many people signed up as we can, as soon as we can, to do some good, but also that we study how it worked. You know, you're all a part of telling us, did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? Because when those dollars start running out, we are going to go to Congress and say, here's what we learned. Now let's build something sustainable for the long haul so that we have a permanent broadband affordability program in this country. One other thing that's important is there is no household that signs up for this program that will be forced to pay full freight when the program's over. In other words, when the funds run out, they have to opt in to paying full freight. It does not automatically happen. We did that on purpose. We want to make sure there's no household who's struggling who gets some bill shock they didn't anticipate. So I think that's important to know from the get-go.
I will give my own, as a congressman, my own estimate about when it won't run out. I believe that the federal government will not announce that we are beyond the pandemic anytime before September, October, et cetera. It's probably going to run through the end of the year. If we all do our job and the 3.2 billion looks like it's running out before the end of the year, I can promise you this, Mark Vesey, who was the lead on this $3.2 billion, and Republicans and Democrats, like myself and others, we will go ahead, as long as the pandemic is still going on and it's still not declared that we're beyond it, we will push into the next package another tranche of money to make sure that it goes beyond the end of this year. So in my opinion, I believe that this will be accessible and available throughout 2021. And at the earliest, sometime in 2022, the money will run out. Because if the 3.2 billion with a B starts to run out and the pandemic is still not declared that we're past it, we will put more money into a rescue package and to address this issue.
I like the sound of that.
Yes, I can say that.
Yes.
Next question.
All right, Congressman, I think we have someone with a hand up. Maritza Monterosa, are you able to unmute to ask your question?
Yes, first of all, thank you so much for doing this type of engagement with the community. Congressman, I really appreciate as a community member and also as a community in schools. I do work in a parent center in North Hills, and I witness all the needs of our community. And I really appreciate, like I mentioned before, every single thing that you do for our people. This pandemic hit every single household. That's how we know all that. And this help for these families about the having access to internet. We provide them schools to hotspot for them. It's a struggle for them because they cannot be afford to pay any cable company. In the beginning, they did pay little, and then suddenly they came maybe from $20 to $95 to the service. And the families called me because I'm working the community to support them, not only for our school, our family, how we can do that. And even little arrangement that there is no money anywhere, and the families struggle for keep on Zoom for the kids. And it's still now opening and the business are opening, but it's still money don't come like in a big pocket to their home. So any help is great. And thank you for always keeping this in mind to help our family who's have a lack of job now, lack of insurance, because that's what I see also. I see many needs in our community. For example, maybe not the topic, but maybe for later you can include. We have family that is struggling to not have medical insurance. And what they're doing now, they share medication, maybe it's the kids' medication they share for them because they don't have any medical insurance. They don't have an emergency, like a medical emergency medical, and they are afraid to go to the hospital. They are afraid because they're not qualified for a social security number. And that's what this is community suffering a lot like everybody else. But I just see my community with tears using the federal benefits like food stamps, the money they receive to pay the rent and not completely pay the rent. Because I have a mom, for example, she used all the $600 she received for her kids to pay the rent with zero for her for food. She got benefits for all the bank food, and I applaud our council president, Nuri Martinez, for keep in mind everything, even to provide laundry money so they can do the washing. Every need. So that's what I really support that, and thank you. And this is my opportunity to say personally, thank you for what you do for us, for all my community in Panorama City, North Hills.
Sí, gracias, Maritza. And also it's interesting you would mention your councilwoman, Nuri Martinez, and then also Luz Rivas and Bob Hertzberg, the state assembly member and the state senator. I personally spoke to all of them to ask them the money that we sent the city from the federal government to help the city help you, Maritza, and your constituents, and then to the state of California, to the governor and the legislature. And they let us know that they are receiving the money, and they're immediately starting to put some of that money into programs for the homeless, programs to help people with their rent, et cetera. And also the state of California helping with healthcare and with undocumented individuals, et cetera. So Maritza, what you should do once we're done with this call is have you or one of your people call their offices, Luz's office, thank them, and ask them if they could explain to you some of the things that they're doing there. Like Nuri Martinez's office, the councilwoman, ask them some of the things that they're gonna be rolling out very, very soon now that we've sent them the money so that they can help your community. Okay, next question.
Thank you. We have Jean Holm with her hand up.
Hi, thank you very much for bringing this together, Tony and Council Commissioner Rosenworcel. We've been, my name is Jean Holm. I'm the Deputy Mayor at the City of Los Angeles here on behalf of Mayor Eric Garcetti. And I'm just very grateful for all the leadership and work that both of you have shown in the work that you've been doing in our ability to get more people connected, particularly during the pandemic. But as you all know, it's been a longstanding issue. During the pandemic, we've been able to work with our telecommunication providers to bring low cost or free internet access. 18,000 Wi-Fi hotspots have gone out to homeless kids with a partnership with T-Mobile. And with a partnership with Starry Internet, we've put in free high-speed broadband into public housing for 9,000 families. And these are the kinds of things that can happen, but only because you created the sort of political will and leadership to make that kind of partnership palatable to our telecommunication companies, who are great providers and supporters. But there are a couple of concerns I have, and just wanted to highlight these for you as the program starts. So one is there's a concern which is partially founded, but it's a very real concern, particularly in our immigrant communities, around the idea that if they sign up for the service, that they're going to get upsold at the end. So eventually the money will run out, whether that's 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. And what has happened in the past, so there's a real fear around this, is that when somebody signs up for 2 months of free internet service, it doesn't default after the 2 months to the $14.99 service. It defaults to the $69.99 service. And so our community members are very concerned that at the end, it will either graciously end and their internet service will turn off, which they understand, or that it will default to the lowest cost option. And then the other piece that we're concerned about is the ability for our families in public housing, where we are essentially the city or the county, some municipality is being sort of that landlord provider. And so we just want to be able to be clear on how we might be able to work on behalf of all of our constituents in public housing to help get them access to some of these services. And then the final piece is is really around the fact that, because of all the leadership that you've shown, Mayor Garcetti was able to announce just the last 2 weeks that we're forming a municipal broadband commission, and we are working with our LA Unified School District, Metro, and LA County to create a strategic regional broadband position, as well as putting out 300 additional blocks of free public Wi-Fi this year. And again, just the reason that we're able to do that, and the reason that the telecommunication companies are offering to be partners in that, is really because of the leadership that you've all shown at the federal level. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate the thank you. Thank you. It doesn't happen very often. Even when we put out $1.9 trillion, people are busy working. They don't have time to say thank you. So thank you for taking that opportunity. But Commissioner, on the question of, putting it crudely, upselling when it's over, what are the protections there?
Yeah, this is really important. And the good news is we were very aware of this problem from the beginning. So anyone who is eligible signs up for this program. The service shuts off unless they opt into service going forward. We chose to do it that way because we know that people get upsold, they get bill shock. We made it so it was their choice. I think that's important because the kind of practices you describe are so commonplace, and there are so many households that are struggling right now. Now, it's my hope that we're going to get a successor program in place so this can continue and we won't get to that juncture, but we specifically made that choice about having to opt in for continued service in order to avoid the problem you described. You also mentioned landlords and providers, and I feel like Ed talked a little bit about that because we're trying to figure out ways to get as many people signed up as possible. And like you said, sometimes the landlord has the subscription, not the individual, like apartments or units. I'm wondering if Ed could respond to that.
Sure. So the program is designed to account for that. And in situations where the landlord has the account and is the account holder, as long as the service providers or participating provider, they can reach out on behalf of their residents. There's a way for the eligible households that are in the apartment complex. So maybe say half the households are eligible, and for whatever reason, half might not be. The half that are eligible can use the benefit to offset their cost. There's some special provisions in the order. I've been told it's paragraph 45 repeatedly that speaks to this, where you get consent and then you can apply that to offset the cost. And what happens is the landlord's bill would be reduced by the total number of offsets. And then obviously the landlord wouldn't then be charging the households for the money they've gotten as an offset.
And Ed, does that work if the landlord is essentially a municipality for like public housing?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I've heard talk about public housing, and I know that this has come up when we've been talking to HUD and others, but I want to be accurate when I respond. So let me check with my team and make sure that we're telling you the right information.
And then you also mentioned municipal planning, and I just want to say hats off because we've reached the point where waiting for our nation's broadband providers that are to reach everyone everywhere without some oversight and some planning, it's not going to happen. We got to be real intentional as communities with coming up with plans to make sure that infrastructure is everywhere and we have affordability programs that can help reach everyone everywhere. So that's terrific news that the mayor's office has made it a priority to do that. We're going to need that same kind of activity in communities across the country.
Yes, I believe the next question, I think Mr. John Willer.
Yes. Good morning. Thank you for the program. This is very important and very interesting program. Is there an existing FCC program for helping on low-income families similar to the program you've already got?
So the existing program we have has actually been around since 1985. It's called Lifeline. 1985, President Reagan was in the White House, and most communications involved like a jack in the wall and a curly cord. You'd have to explain it to millennials. It was a different time, but that was when, as a nation, we first decided we're going to subsidize basic telephone service in every household so people can call 911, keep up with schools, find jobs. So what we've noticed over time is like dial tone in the digital age, it's actually internet access. So we have to take that Lifeline program and update it and make it frankly evolve into what this emergency broadband benefit is. Because having access to the internet right now is like having access to dial tone in the 80s. We got to make sure it reaches every household everywhere. The Lifeline program is still available. It'll help people get connected to voice service and mobile phones, and it's still valuable for low-income households. But I really think we have to organize around the idea of internet service. And this program, the Emergency Broadband Benefit one, is the first nationwide program that does that.
With regards to that program, we've applied, several of our clients have applied for the program, and Spectrum has refused to accept the documentation that we provided in order to get the communication. Who do we?
So one thing I
can
want
they
to talk about
contact with regards to that?
Yeah. So one of the things we've been aware of with Lifeline and documentation problems that prove your eligibility, that's always been a bit of an issue. So we decided to get really expansive when it came to proving you are who you are. You could have a social security number, or you could have another form of government ID, a taxpayer ID, a driver's license, a tribal identity card. In other words, we decided to make sure that there were lots of different ways to prove you are who you say you are. And it's not just a social security number with the emergency broadband benefit. Our hope is that more people will be eligible and find it easier to get service this way.
And
Now, again, I want to
The question
clarify.
I have is with
John,
regards to Spectrum.
John,
What do we
hold
do
on,
if
John,
they don't accept
John.
the documentation?
No, one thing I want to say, John, is I need to clarify, people, what the commissioner just mentioned. If you cannot provide a social security number, you don't have to worry about it. You can use another document. Let's just say you're from another country and you have a government document. It doesn't have to be an American government document. It just has to be a document that is a government document, and that will suffice. Okay, just wanted to clarify. It's not you need 10 different things to prove it, including a social security number. If you don't have one of those documents, don't worry about it. And we need you to help people understand that they don't need that. All they need is something, and like the commissioner said, they're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to sign up. Go ahead, John.
We've still got, that doesn't seem to be the problem. It's just that Spectrum is not accepting the documentation that we're providing.
if I could jump in briefly. So I do want to note that Spectrum does have a non-government program called Spectrum Assist that, and I'm not sure what the specifics of the situation here are, but for awareness, just know that there is a version of that. And yes, Spectrum Internet Assist is separate and distinct from both the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program and from the Lifeline Program. But one of the teams that I oversee is the Consumer Complaints and Inquiries Division, or the Complaint Center at the FCC. And you are more than welcome to invite the people you're trying to help, yourself, go to fcc.gov/complaints. And I stuck that in the chat, so you have that website accessible. And file a complaint. We serve it on the provider has 30 days to respond. I think we do a pretty good job on this. We're very much like the CFPB in that we serve the company, they have to answer us. We're not just an aggregator of complaints. So we do get results and we do get outcomes. So please encourage people to come there and file those complaints if they're having an issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Do we have any more questions? I know that, Ed, you were answering some questions in chat. Are there any other questions?
I think Carla had a question.
Okay, we'll go to Carla, then we'll go back to John.
Good morning. Thank you always, Congressman Cardenas, for bringing the platform and bringing us together, as well as Jessica and Edward and the rest of the team. Osvaldo, good to see you. Question, when our undocumented folks receive benefits such as this, we, as a non-documented woman, and not anymore, I'm a US citizen now, when it was in the transition of processing my paperwork to get my documentation here, my legal documentation, we had to sign an affidavit. And sometimes the landlords or the folks that we live with, they don't want to do it, because that means that we are not going to be, in my case, full transparency, in my case, you have to sign an affidavit, find someone that is going to sign it, that you are not going to be what they called it back in the days, public charge, that you're not going to receive benefits from the government, that you're not going to receive food stamps, that you're not going to receive any medical for 5 years. So is that going to be the case? Because that might scare people for applying for the benefit. Is there any feedback that we can receive on that? I would never want to share the information and then come back and backfire to my blessed community that I serve.
Thank you. On the public benefit, they call it public benefit charge, when it comes to immigration status or what have you. Do you have any understanding about whether or not this would be considered a public benefit in that category, Commissioner?
I don't. I think I'm going to have to look into that. Our whole goal was frankly having so many different forms of identification so that we could just broaden the community that could benefit. But I need to understand, are you describing the kind of form that a landlord asks you to sign as a condition to actually living in a location?
No, what she's talking about, Commissioner, is, and if we had one of the lawyers on the line from another department, we'd probably be able to answer the question. But basically what Carla's talking about is when somebody is going from undocumented status and legally going through the process of getting documented, what happens is they run the danger of having to sign under penalty of perjury that they have not been participating in categorically what is considered a public charge. And there are many government benefits that are not considered on the list of public charge. What we went through in the Trump administration, they tried to push anything and
they expanded it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
For example, school lunch program. They tried to put that in there. Thank God we pushed back and they weren't able to do that. You get what I'm saying?
Yes,
so in this category, this program that's going through the FCC, I know what our intent was, but Carla, I don't want to answer because every time, I'm sorry, I'm going to give you all 60 seconds of what we have to go through as members of Congress. Back last year when we got this done, the Senate was controlled by the Republicans and the House was controlled by the Democrats. The presidency was a Republican. And when we passed legislation through the House, we try everything that we can to not have things like this be considered in any way public charge. And we actually point that out in the legislation. But when it gets to places like the Senate, when it's controlled by the Republicans, they try to reinsert that language. And then we get the president's office involved, and then we have that fight about what the final language is going to be. And I'm really sorry, I don't remember, I don't know if my staff, Olivia, knows, but I don't personally remember enough to tell you at this moment whether or not we were able to keep it from being a public charge. I hope we were able to. Olivia?
Yes, actually, I believe on March 9th that the Biden administration announced that they were not going to enforce the public charge rule that the Trump administration had come out with before. So thankfully, public charge rules no longer a concern. So you can absolutely feel free to apply for this benefit and not have to worry about any consequences. Everybody should be able to apply for this and get the help they need.
So what that means is tell everybody in your community, if they, if they can check off one of those boxes, get this service. What a difference a president makes.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carla. I think we'll go on to John next. You're muted, John.
Sorry about that. Is the recording of this program going to be available?
Yes, I believe we are recording this. We will be able to share with you folks after.
Tell me where I can get it.
Yeah, I'll connect with you after the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have Veronica?
Yes. Good morning. As far as the documents that we are able to show our, like I work at Los Angeles Mission College, our students, Are we going to be getting them emailed to us? Do we have to go to the web page to get them? On our campus here at Mission, I'm the one who distributes all of our electronic devices, so our students can still do the work remotely. And I usually send them information via email after they receive their electronic devices, and this would be something good to send to them. If I can get the information electronically as an attachment, so I can send it to them as part of an email that I can create for them. The ones I've been dealing with are English, Spanish, and a few Armenian and Russian speaking, and very few are Farsi right now. So I don't recall if Farsi was one of the ones on the list.
I believe we have a lot of documents on our emergency broadband toolkit that are like custom made for you to attach it to an email and send it out to everyone you know. Ed can follow up a little more with that, but I believe we have a whole bunch of stuff that you can choose from. It's designed to make it easy for someone like you who wants to reach out to people who could benefit from it.
Yes, and I already have a list of everybody who's received a device from us. So I mean, if I can just send it out to everybody, including and especially our non-credit students who are generally left out of the loop, that would be great. That would be great. And since I also work, like Carla was saying, with our Dream Resource Center, our undocumented students, that would also be very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Well, we have 2 more minutes left, so I'm going to take this opportunity to thank all of you for getting on this call. And this is one example of how accessible the FCC is making sure they are. And I'm going to warn you, Commissioner, one of my closest and best friends is now a United States Senator, and he represents the 40 million people across the state of California. And I'm going to tell him how excited I was that we were able to do this. So he's probably going to call you and want to do this with organizations statewide. So I'm just going to warn you about that.
That's okay. I'm here for it. Is he from your district? Did he grow up in Pacoima?
He grew up in Pacoima. Just truth be told, he ran my very first campaign 26 years ago, and then 3 years later, I helped him get elected to the city council. And then it's an example where the student becomes the teacher here. So. Alex Padilla, we grew up sons of immigrants, both of us. His parents are from Mexico, my parents from Mexico. Our parents used to pray together at Mary Immaculate Church before Alex and I even met. He's 10 years younger than me. We're a different generation, but he's amazing. And when I tell him what we did today, he's gonna probably be getting a hold of you. And it's about time y'all get to know each other, because you're amazing, he's amazing. But anyway, any closing remarks, Commissioner?
No, listen, I have always appreciated how much, like I said, you care about your community, but you care about getting them connected. You are the very first member of Congress who wanted to hold a session like this with me. I got others coming, but I just wanted to thank you for being the first. I know you care deeply. So like when this program rolls out, let's make sure that your community is more connected than it's ever been. That's my hope. So stay in touch with us so we can help you do that.
Yes, and also this came about because the commissioner and I talked about how can the community help the FCC do a great job of rolling this out. So I'm sure on May 12th, it's going to be an amazing rollout. And like I warned all of you, please get people signed up as quickly as possible so that we can start running out of money, so that Mark Vesey and myself and the rest of us can get another $3 or $4 billion assigned so that we can keep this going. And then we're just going to tell you this little secret. Congress and the FCC would like all of us to make this successful so that we can now create the permanent, not COVID, during COVID, during a crisis like this, but make a permanent program to make sure that people have high-speed access to internet. Right, Commissioner?
Amen to that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Great job.
Stay safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.